Sorry, kids are just all over the place.
I feel like this whole thing is stupid right now.
No, it's not stupid. It's just my child keeps. Yeah, it's good because you never explained it like this to me. So you.
Should we start from the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back to another episode of Here With Us. We haven't been able to film, for a little while because Barbara had her baby. She decided to finally give birth. No. She gave birth on the 21st of January to Bella.
I know, isn't that crazy?
8-pound baby.
Man, about time because I was losing it.
Yeah. So Barbara's not going to be on this video, unfortunately, because she's still recovering, I guess.
Yes.
But prayerfully she'll be on the next one.
Yes, hopefully.
We miss her.
Aw.
This is the first time I've seen her since
the baby. I know.
Yeah.
Goodness. Since the New Year's?
No,
since
the last
we filmed.
Remember that film that we did, the one?
Oh yeah, the one.
The boring one. No, just kidding.
Okay, well, this episode, you're doing it by yourself, not only because I am recovering from my labor, but I was gonna have you do this by yourself anyways because a lot of the viewers, some of the viewers that we have, wanted to know more about your story, and because you were talking about a woman's home, and they wanted to know what woman's home, what is that woman's home about. So we talked about it, and you did decide to actually talk about your testimony and the story behind the woman's home.
Oh, okay. I know I did talk about the women's home a lot in the first video.
So nobody really understood.
People are probably like, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
The women's home. So I was in a women's recovery home through my the church I go to, but I used to be a drug addict, and I'll go into that in a minute, but I used to be a drug addict. And all right, well, I'm 25 now, but when I was 19, I grew up in church. Me and my family, my parents, we always were in church, so I grew up knowing God. I grew up in the church, and then when I turned 19, I stopped going to church because my mom had a restaurant. I was always running that, but I got with someone that was 37 when I was 19, not knowing any better, I didn't even have any idea about drugs or anything like that. I was very naive, very, gullible, And long story short, I got with the guy who was 37. I was deeply in love with him, and he got me on drugs. I mean, I'm not going to blame him, but the first few times I was on crystal meth or whatever, he put in my drink, and so that's kind of how it started. And after I realized that I was on drugs, I wanted it after that, and they always tell you don't even try meth, not even once. It's true. It can really have a hold on you, So I started using, and we would use off and on, it was never a continuous thing. It was a dabbling thing. So we'd party here, party there, or whatever, but never every day, It was let's get high for the weekend or whatever. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until 2018. So that was 2016 when I started. And then 2018, my stepdad who raised me, he passed away, which I had a hard time with that, And after he passed away, I just started using consistently every day for 3 months. And then we were doing some other stuff, and he ended up, my boyfriend went to prison after that because he was doing some stuff. He got caught up. And so I got sober for maybe 9 months or whatever. And in that time I was sober and, just hanging out with his mom or whatever. And then I got high again because I had never got high by myself. I always got high with him. So I was curious, what it was like to be high in general, without him. And so then I got high, and then I ended up leaving that situation, and I decided that's when I moved to California. I was living in Oregon.
You just gave me bits and pieces of crazy things. But no, it's just good. I know it's overwhelming, but it's okay. If my child would stop coming out here and being loud, do you hear her? I'm like, geez. But yeah, no, go ahead. It's good. This sounds good. Literally, it's from the beginning. So it sounds really good.
Okay.
It sounds good.
I had moved out here to California. Not going to say where in California. And I moved in with my grandparents, and I wanted to change my life, because I just felt lost at that time. I didn't even know who I was outside of that relationship with him, because, I don't know, I fell in love with a man at such a young age that when he left, it was like I didn't even know who I was. I had no idea who I was as a person, as a woman. I didn't even know what I wanted. So I was like, I'm done, you know. I left the situation with him. He was in prison or whatever, and I stayed with his mom, you know, and I was supporting him and was gonna wait for him. But I was like, one day, I guess I was just every day, you know, I was like bitter. I was upset. I was angry at him, you know, for the things that he did, and I was like, I couldn't let it go. You know, I couldn't just move on. I started getting really bad insomnia. I was like, so one day I just left. I said, forget everything. I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. And so I left. And then that's when everything kind of just fell through. The rug was pulled out from under me. And I was kind of on the street a little bit in Oregon before I did come out here. But that's when I called my grandma and was like, can I come out there, you know? I didn't know what to do. So I had to get rid of my dog Samson, everything. So it was all bad for me. So then I moved out here and I was living with my grandparents. And then she kept telling me, you know, like, why don't you go to school? Like, do this. And so I started looking around at schools and I started going to school. And then shortly after going to school is when the pandemic hit. So I was going to school for medical office or something. And then after like a term, I was like, this isn't for me. I don't know why. I was like, let me switch. So I switched to business administration. And then after that, maybe after like a semester, that's when the pandemic hit. Yeah. And so we were there at school and our teacher was looking at like how fast it was growing, you know. And then maybe within, 8 weeks of being in the business program, pandemic. So we had to go online. And I was sober all this time. And then after the pandemic hit, I was like, I started getting high again, you know, because it was like my grandma, she wouldn't let me go nowhere. It was like, it was a horrible time, you know, the pandemic. Sure. So I started getting high, but I feel like I was masking it. I was containing myself because I was doing my schoolwork. I was helping all these other people with their schoolwork. I was being productive, you know, until it finally was like too much for me. I started taking off a lot and all that. But then I don't know what happened. I sobered up after a few months. And I got a car and all that stuff. And then I was like, I'm going to go visit Oregon. So this was after, a year and a half, after being in California. I went back to Oregon just to visit. I wanted to see my brother and stuff. I think it was a year and a half or 2 years.
I didn't know you went back.
Yeah, I went back once, remember?
I didn't know you went all the way back.
I went to Oregon just to, remember I took Russia? I took my dog.
I didn't know you went back to Oregon, though. I thought you went to San Francisco or wherever.
No, that was after.
No. Oh, okay. So
yeah, so I went back to Oregon. I wanted to see my family, you know, and my brothers, and I went back and I went and seen my ex, you know, and because I had talked to his mom. I hadn't talked to anybody. I literally just dipped out of my life when I had left him. I sent his car back on a tow truck. I dipped out of my life, you know, so I never said bye to him or to his mom or anybody. I just left. And I sent his car back on a tow truck like I was done. So I got in touch with his mom for some reason and was talking to her. And I didn't want to talk to him. I just wanted to say hi to her, you know, because I loved his mom like my own mom, you know. I didn't even necessarily want to talk to him. So we were talking and I seen her or something. I went to see her and I guess he wasn't even there. And then she called me that next day. And I answered it because I thought it was her. And it was my ex. And so I started talking to him and of course, you know how that goes. And so I went and seen him and we were back together or whatever. And then I came back out to California. And then when I was in Oregon, I didn't really feel like, I didn't really care. Like I cared that I saw him, but I didn't care about the emotions behind it, you know? I kind of wanted to, I don't know. I needed closure, but I also felt like I was doing my own thing and I needed to continue doing that. So then I came back out to California. Going to school online and stuff. So I came back out here to California. And then after maybe a few days, I was like, why did I do that? Like, what am I doing? You know, like, because I missed him, you know, and obviously he missed me or whatever. And so I was like, whatever. And then another one of my family members, she just happened to come and visit or whatever. And I started getting high again because it was around me, you know. So it was like, it's different when, if it's never around you and you're never around people who do it, you're not going to be tempted. But when you're around somebody that's doing it, you're going to crave it, you know? Yeah. I mean, not now, but you're going to crave it. You're like, ooh, I missed that. And so I was like, I'm going to get high, whatever. And so I got high, and then I had to go take my family member somewhere to the airport. So I drove her, and I never came back to my grandma's. So I I took off. I drove her. She ended up missing her flight, and then it ended up being like a 3-day adventure. And then my ex had hit me up, and he said he wanted me to meet him halfway from where I was to where he was in Northern California. So I went like an idiot, dude. But I mean, I'm an idiot in a way, but like it needed to happen this way,
Yeah.
you know, because I needed that closure, regardless of how it was. I needed that closure. So I went with him, met him in Northern California, and we stayed there for like 3 months. I didn't say nothing to nobody. I just took off, you know, and it was, you know, like a controlling relationship. So like he wouldn't let me on my phone or anything, you know. I didn't really. In those 3 months, I was kind of talking to some people, but not only if
get a hold of you.
only if he was gone or something,
Yeah.
or if he was knocked out. That'd be it. That'd be the only time.
Or if you called or something.
That'd be the only time, yeah. But other than that, after those 3 months, it was whatever. But we were there, and then, you know, we were just staying in the garage, you know, and in the cold of the winter, dude. It was freezing, getting high, you know. And then after those 3 months, I think it was his sister's. They ended up getting evicted or whatever, his sister, because I guess they were hoarding power or something. So they boarded the house up. Everyone had to leave. And so from that day on, we were homeless after that. We were homeless, dude.
You mean hoarding power?
You know, like they were getting illegal power. I don't know how. They weren't paying for their power.
Oh,
There's a way to
like
do
they
that.
were connecting
Yeah.
to somebody else, like Wi-Fi users.
Yeah. So they found out. I don't know. One day, it was crazy. One day we were in the shower and all these people were like, "Hey, Serena, like, come on, you gotta go. The cops are coming." And we're like, "What?" I was still in my towel and everything, and so we had to take off. And that was a crazy time, you know. Then we left, and I let somebody else take my car. He had his car, and then I didn't even end up getting my car back for like a week because his niece or something took the car, and she ended up leaving it somewhere, and it got impounded. So I called my mom. I think, didn't they get a piece of paper, Grandma and Grandpa?
Yeah, I think when we contacted you about it, you were already.
Well, it got impounded twice.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know when this one was.
The last time it got impounded, that was it.
Okay, so but you were already in the home.
Yeah, I was in the home.
Got it, yeah.
So it got impounded. My mom helped me get it out, and at that time, I was like, I started to kind of catch on a little bit to his games or whatever, and I was like, I'm done. So I ended up getting a ride from these random people, dude. Don't even know these tweakers. I don't even know them, dude. And they drove me. Yeah, I hung out with them in their hotel room for a little while, but then they ended up driving me to the place where my car was. And then my mom paid for the car to get out or whatever. And then I took off. And I remember the last time, I think that was the last time I talked to Grandma was this day. Because I was tripping, dude. I called her. God knows what I said to her. I remember I was tripping, dude. And I think that was the last time I called her. I think that was the last time I called anybody. And then we were just living like in the whatever. I took my car. I ended up coming back down here to Southern California. And he ended up coming out here. He followed me out here. Maybe like a day behind me or whatever. And he came out here. I was at my friend's house and then he came. And then from that day on, we were just in the desert. Like, we would go park in the desert, the desert. And out of our car or whatever. But the last time, because we would just go to different areas, different deserts, and park there and tweak or whatever. And the last time, because I had my car, he had his, we were up on this mountain, and his car was rear-wheel drive. And it got stuck, and it started to slide down the mountain, like... And and he would always use his car to jump my car. Because my car, I don't know, he did something to the battery. Because one time I unscrewed the battery because he dumped a cup of soda on my dash. And it blew the circuit fuse for the radio. Anyway. And so I was like, let me just unplug my battery. Maybe it'll reset. Whatever. But after I unplugged it, I couldn't screw it back on. I couldn't. So he ended up coming and he ended up putting some wire together to make the battery work, but it would die, the battery. So he would use his car to jump my car. I think he did that on purpose, so that way I would always need him, no matter what. It would just randomly shut off. And so I was trying to pull his car out, and my car died right there. So mine was up here, his car was like down here, sliding down the mountain, in the dirt. And so that from that day, we were screwed. And then at one point, we were like digging it to get his car out. And we did, but then it ended up sliding down the mountain more to where it was like this, stuck, and we had to dig it out. It was like a few days, dude. And then after those few days, we were like, we needed to go down to wherever civilization was to get water and stuff. Like we didn't have anything, and but believe it or not, it gets really cold in the desert, dude. It gets freezing.
What? What? Come on. What? What? You want popcorn? Okay, go ahead. Thank you. Okay, sorry.
It gets really cold in the desert.
Oh yeah.
Especially like when you're in between like two mountains. It gets really cold, and he would like start a fire and all this stuff, because we would always have because we have food stamps, so we would always have food of some sort in somewhere, something you cook. Why he would always buy that, I couldn't tell you. Why didn't we just buy like camping stuff? I don't know. Anyway, so one day we went down my car because the battery had died. That same day I got really mad and I hit my driver window, and it like fell off of the rollers. So you could push it up with your hand and pull it down, but you couldn't lock it or anything because it was dead. So I had all my stuff. I had my subwoofer, I had my sound system in my car and everything, which is a little bit higher up the mountain. Everything, his toolboxes and everything. But we had to go down and get supplies because we were going to be out there for a while digging the car out with a shovel. And
They're not with you.
So we had to go down, that place that I showed you up there?
Mm-hmm.
We had to go down from all the way to the top of the mountain to go all the way down to the gas station. And then when we were walking down and like where the road is, we would stop a lot for certain things. And he looked up at the top and he's like, I thought he was messing with me. He goes, look it up there. Because he'd always mess with my mind and be like, look, trying to make me trip out. And he's like, look up there. There's somebody up there. And I'm like, you're tripping, dude. That's a bird. Like, I really thought it was a bird. It was somebody standing up there watching us. And so when we did come back, all my stuff was stolen out of my car. Everything. Nothing was left. Maybe one piece of clothing. They stole everything. And because when we got back up there, it was dark. But I was so upset, And then, so basically those people were watching us. They were watching us up there. They saw that we were stuck or whatever. They were watching us. So the first time we were there, I was tweaking, dude. I took the seat out of my passenger. I was like, yeah, this is cool. Come on, just help me unbolt it, And this guy walked, I guess he was hiking, but I think they were watching us to see what the heck we were doing. Because over there, people are scandalous. I'll tell you, desert people are scandalous. That's all I got to say. No. And then there was a couple I seen. We were there. I think the very first day we got there, there was a couple. They just walked up and walked down, which to go down is not safe to drive or walk, just saying. Anyways, so they took our stuff or whatever. And then when we got back, I think it was that next day, some dude on a quad drove by and was just watching us, and took off. And I was like, at that point, I was really scared. I honestly felt scared up there. And I remember there was a few times when we were up on that mountain, specifically, like I would try to pray to God, and I feel like the devil had my lips silenced, like he wouldn't let me talk on the mountain, because it was like I was silenced. It was like I couldn't talk at all, like not even to my boyfriend. I couldn't say anything. No words would come out. So I know that the devil had a big toll on me up there with my mind, my thoughts. And so after that, we were like, all right, we got to get this car out of here. We got to, dig it out. So we were using the shovel with our hands. Like we were filthy, I bet. And then I went all the way down and was laying rocks. So that way when we were driving it down, that it would just not get stuck or anything again. Then we ended up getting it out. And then when we got back into town, I was like, he goes, let's go back up there and get your car. I was like, nope, I'm not going back up there today. No, thank you. I don't want to go up there and get stuck again, because with the rear wheel drive, no thank you. Because it's just, the sand up there is soft, so I was like, no, let's just go somewhere else and we'll stay somewhere and I'm good. I didn't really care at that point what happened to my car, because, so that's why I say like my car got stolen, but I didn't care at that point. I didn't care about anything at that point.
You felt like scared to go back up there?
I felt terrified.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so we went, I think we waited like 3 days, maybe, because we went somewhere and stayed at like a motel or something for 3 days. And we went back, which I was terrified to go back. And we were kind of halfway up, and these people just came and they said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he goes, "Hey, our car's up there. Can you help us jump it?" And he goes, "Come on." I was like, "No, you can go." And so I stayed, and he went up there, and the car was gone. And he goes, "It's gone." And he, of course, thought that I had somebody pick it up or steal it or something.
No, there's probably a reason why you didn't want to go back. Maybe there's something that went down that you probably didn't need to be a part of.
It just felt evil up there, you know? It really did. So that's why I felt like it was just evil up there in between those two mountains. Like, the whole time I was doing drugs, like, I felt like that was the evilest
You
thing
guys
would
do it out there in the desert?
Huh?
Do drugs out there in the desert?
Oh, yeah.
Was it
Anywhere.
just meth?
I feel like there was fentanyl in it, too.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes there was fentanyl because there would be times where I'd get high and I would just, like, fall asleep. Or there would be times, like, towards maybe the last 3 months of our adventure, because he would accuse me a lot of stuff, or like we would stay at, he would always want to stay at this one specific motel. It was always $60 a night. To me, it was weird. He always wanted to stay there out of every place. And then it got to the point where I would be like terrified, and then I'd end up falling asleep. And when I would wake up in the morning, he would be like, "I know you went somewhere," or like accusing me. And it's like, what are you talking about? You know, like
thinking that you did something.
And I'm like, I was asleep. Why? And you were
them.
wide awake sitting here, and you're gonna sit here and tell me that, you know? It was just weird, you know. And then
there was like pimps and stuff there.
Yeah, that was definitely like during the night, like tweakers would stay there, and during the day it was like for pimps, you know. It was very strange. And then so we went back. My car was gone. And he was like saying, "Oh, I probably was the one that sold it or whatever." And I'm like, and he was trying to say that I was basically selling my body to make money, which I was on unemployment at the time, you know? So it was like, I get unemployment. Like, what are you getting us? Nothing. And like, it was my money, my unemployment. And then he'd always take my money, you know? And he'd always say, like, "What are you going to do for us?" It's like, this is my money. It's not yours. It doesn't come to your name. It comes to mine. It's with my name, you know? So it's like anything that I had, he would try to sabotage it, you know?
You think that he was drugging you?
I feel like maybe towards the end, yeah. I'm not going to say that he was, but I'm saying certain things that happen and like...
Made it seem like it could possibly have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's a lot of personal things. Like I know for, like 3 months, I was on my period, like bleeding, you know? Which I don't get my period because I have the implant. Mm-hmm. But for like 3 months, I was on my period like heavy. And as soon as we weren't together, like I wasn't in his presence, I stopped. I wasn't on my period anymore. So I know it's stress induced. I know that, but it's just weird. A lot of things that happen, you know, and like little things I would find. Like after we ended up going to a different desert, it started getting even more like demonic, I would say. Because, like, you know, when you're in drugs and you're on drugs, it's a lot of demonic activity that go on. Because you're playing, you know, you're opening that door to the devil. And that's just the reality of it, you know. But when you get further and deeper into your addiction, it's just, you're working for the devil, you know. Yeah. That's why you're up at night and not wanting to be out during the day, you know. Either he went or I went. One of us would stay at the car. So we were at the store, and this older couple was parked by us. And he was, I don't even know where the heck he was. And they started talking to me. They had puppies. They were just talking to me. And it's just crazy to think, like, how crazy things are. Because it's like, sometimes you think, who sent this person? Like, obviously, if God didn't send them, the devil sent this person. So this older couple, they were talking to me. I don't even know what made them just start talking to me, you know? But people always do that. They just always come up and start talking to me about stuff. And they started telling me, like, "Oh, yeah, there's a homeless encampment over here in the desert. Like, come over, you know? There's just a bunch of desert." We ended up going, and there was like a tent that was there that was blown over, like a whole camp set up. And we asked those people, like, "Hey, what's up with this?" Like, "Oh, it's abandoned. Like, they haven't been there in weeks or whatever." So we set it up, dude. It was a whole tent. There was a bunch of stuff in there. So we set it up. But out there in the desert where we were, it gets really windy over there. Like, so windy. Like, you can't do anything because it'll just blow it over, you know, especially over on that particular area. And so we set it up there, and then I remember when we got to that particular area, I wasn't afraid like how I was with the where my car was, but I felt more like I just didn't want to be there. Like I felt really horrible about it. Like I was like, I don't want to be here. And whenever we would get there, we would always fight. I mean, we'd always fight off and on, but at that area, we would always argue and fight. And so I'd always want to go from there back and forth places because I'd be tripping, you know. There would be these 3 trucks that would come out like together. And whenever they'd come out, I would hide. I don't know why I would hide. I guess because I was just hiding from everything, you know. So I didn't know who it was, but I was just hiding from everybody, my family, myself. So it didn't really matter who it was. I was just hiding. And we were out there. We'd go back and forth from that desert, or we would just drive around and just doing tweaker stuff, you know. Just doing stuff that there's nothing else to do in that life but to get high and chase your high, you know. Chasing drugs, chasing that lifestyle. We didn't really affiliate with anybody, you know, but it was just like, I don't know. So, I'm trying to think of what else I was going to say. Long story short, we were out there for...
How long was this going on for?
Like,
so was this the whole pandemic,
like,
or after the pandemic?
This was during the pandemic. Like, people were still wearing masks and stuff.
So was that within a year? So the whole year?
2020, 2021.
Oh, wow.
So I took off in 2020, and then I was in the home May of 2021. Oh, so okay. All that, about 8 months. 8 months, yeah. I was running around, running away from everything. Running away from my life. No. But yeah, I really, when I had got back with my ex, I was going to school online, you know, and I was on the phone with my friend, and she was helping me, and he was gone somewhere. He ended up coming home, and I was on the phone with her, and she was trying to help me, like, to send me the assignments because I hadn't done any of them. And this fool comes in, tackles me to the ground, and I'm like, so, like, she was probably the only friend that knew what was going on, you know? So I didn't get to finish my school, and then after, I think, 14 days of not posting, they just drop you. So I was like, whatever. I had been in contact a few times with one of my teachers, my favorite teachers, you know, and he knew. He didn't know, like, I didn't say, like, oh, I'm on drugs, but he knew what I was doing. And so I just threw that away, you know. I threw away my schooling. I was almost done. I was only 1 class away from getting my certificate. And then...
Do you think it was because of him or because you just...
I just didn't care. I didn't care anymore. I was like... Because once I got back on drugs and got back with him, it was like... Time stopped for me. But then one day I was like... It was kind of like, for me, time stopped. Mm-hmm. I didn't really care how much time went by, but then one day I woke up and it was like, wow, we're in May of 2021. What have I been doing, you know?
Yeah.
What have I been doing? But I remember one night, towards the last few weeks, it was just really bad for us altogether. I mean, it was already bad, but it was really bad. Like, I started to catch on to him because, you know, there'd be times where I felt like it wasn't just meth. I felt like there was fentanyl, because I know that they're cutting a lot of the meth with fentanyl, because when you burn it in the bubble, it doesn't burn clear, you know? It burns like a kind of a yellowish orangish color or something. But there'd be times where, because I was always a snorter. I'd always snort my drugs. I never really, he kind of got me into smoking dope, but I would always snort it. But there'd be times where I would get high and I would knock out, like fall asleep. And there was a couple times, like one time I woke up, I had knocked out in the car. I don't even know where we were. Somewhere in Northern California. I wake up, this fool's parked in an orchard somewhere, and there's cops talking to me, trying to wake me up. And they're like, ma'am, trying to wake me up. And I'm like, what the heck? You know, they're like, what are you on? What are you taking? I'm like, what is going on? He goes, well, you keep falling out. What's going on? And I'm like I had no idea. So that was another thing, too. And then he started lying a lot, like, about stuff. Like there was... I think there was 2 or 3 times where cops got involved. But during the pandemic, during COVID, all they would do is cite and release.
Oh, yeah, they wasn't playing, girl. It was Black Lives Matter. They ain't got time.
Yeah, during the pandemic.
They did not want to mess with nobody.
All they did was cite and release. So even if you were a felon, they would give you a citation to show up, but they'll take your drugs, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all they would do.
They weren't playing.
And
they were not trying to work that year after that whole...
Yeah. He got maybe like 4 or 5 cite and releases in the state of California, you know? So it was like, It was crazy, but that last time it was crazy. And then we would pull all my money out whenever we'd get it because he snapped my debit card in half, so I had it taped. Yeah, irritating. He took so I'd give him the cash. He somehow made me give him the money or whatever. So he had all the money, and sometimes I would knock out in the car. And then when I'd wake up, he wouldn't be there. We'd be at some truck stop, weird stuff. And the last time, when the cops woke me up or whatever, I guess they had all his stuff on the top of the car, and they asked me to get out and like sit on the side or whatever so they could search it. And I guess they didn't take any of his money. They counted it, left it there, and they put him in the cop car. And then when they brought it back, he was trying to say like, "Oh, the cop took my money." I said, "Why don't you call them? Call the police department and let's find out the truth, because this happened 2 other times before that." And I said, "There's no way the cop stole your money. You're tripping, you know?" So he ended up calling, and the cop that was the one that did it, he was like, "I saw a receipt for this gas station for this much." Like he got a shower or something at a truck stop. And I'm like,
You have to pay for showers at truck stops?
It's $12 back
to
then.
shower?
Yeah.
Is it free now?
Probably more.
No, they
You
charge
have to pay to shower?
Yeah, at a truck stop.
Water.
Yeah, I think you could take as long as you want to or something. But he paid like $60 at the truck stop, and there was a receipt, and the cop seen it, and then he goes, "Actually, I saw the receipt," and so they discovered like.
So he used all your money to take showers?
I don't know. Barbara, I don't know what he was doing with the money.
Look, honestly, I would have
But it's
punched
just
him
weird
in his
how
face.
I would knock out, and then when I wake up, like weird stuff was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because usually when you're on meth and you fall asleep, you wake up, cool, let's get high. But why would I be coming in and out and falling out like that? Like the cop even said, "What are you on?" I said, "Like meth." He goes, "There's no way you're falling out." Which I had no recollection of him even being there, you know?
They would know because it's what they deal with all the time.
Yeah, so I know that there was something else in the mix. And then also towards the end of us being out there, there was a eye drops bottle. And I had heard from somebody else that people be putting heroin, like liquid heroin, in the eye drops bottle and snorting it. And I guess it gives you like an insane rush. But when I found the eye drops, he was like, "Give me that." Like, because I was like, "What is this?" And he's like, "Give me that." Like, so I was like, and then later on, after I went in the home, I found out, no, people do that. Like, they get high. They put, like, liquid stuff in there and get
So
high.
it's secretive.
Yeah, and I'm like, why is it secretive? Which he had never done anything in front of me besides meth or introduced me to that. So, and mind you, when I very first got on drugs, he tried to tell me it was cocaine, and I believed him. So,
Manipulating liar.
yeah. And so, anyways, the few days before I never seen him again, we were out there. I was tripping out. I don't even know. It was dark, and there was like some dogs barking out there. There was other people that lived out there. I was tripping, and of course, I always drove the car. I always had the keys or whatever. And he took off walking through the desert in the dark because he thought the cops were coming. He took off. I tried following him. I couldn't find him. It was dark out there. I didn't have no flashlight. So I took off in the car. I left. And I was driving, and I would pull over because I thought people were following me. And then I just kept on driving back and forth and stopping and circling around. Finally, I stopped somewhere, and there was an RV, and I parked next to it so that way, because the window was broke. And then I knocked out. And the next day, I woke up. I think it was around 4 o'clock, I think, because I didn't have a phone or time or anything. There was $5 in the visor. I was like, I'm going to get me some McDonald's. So I went to McDonald's. I wasn't even concerned about this dude, you know? So then I go back, and he was about to get in the car with somebody, this black car I'd never seen before. He was about to get in the car. When he seen me pull up, he got out and went in our tent. And then he tried to pick a fight with me so he could take off. But I had the feeling like he was going to leave me there, which I didn't have nothing. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have anything. And so he was loading everything up in the car, like the water, everything. And he took off. He was trying to get me to, he punched me in the face. Like, my whole face was so swollen. I looked like Avatar, like blue. He was spraying me with spray paint. Like, he was he was pulling my hair. We ended up going back to where our camp was. And then that's when he was really trying to push me out of the car. He had this blue spray paint. I don't know why he had this blue spray paint to tag stuff. I don't know. He was into some weird stuff towards the end. And I had spray paint all over me, and I had my hair in a bun because, you know, I hadn't washed it or anything. And so he was pulling my hair, spraying me, and then he ended up taking off. And I went and I sat in the tent. He took off. I went in the tent. We had a mattress. We found it. And we had a mattress on top of another mattress. And so I went in there and I sat on the bed. Oh, I forgot. You're going to have to rewind this later. He had told me when he took off, he's like, I hope you die in a fire. Like, and he just like, I hope you die in a fire. And he took off. So that's when I went in the tent and I was like, what the heck am I going to do now? You know? And I sat down for a minute. And the people that were next to us that had originally invited me to come out there, they weren't that close, but they were close enough. You know, like if you said, hey, they would hear you. They were like, hey, Serena, there's some food over here. The Moss brought it out if you want to come get some. I guess they brought out like containers of food, which they had never done this. So I went over there. I'm talking to them because they had two dogs, two pit bulls, and I was gonna get one of their puppies because they had two puppies. I was gonna buy one of them from them, but that didn't work out. Thank God. I would have been stuck out there with a dog, you know. And so I'm talking to them. I'm eating, and I was telling them what happened, you know. And they're like, he punched you? I was like, yeah. Which they were the only ones that would ever see us fight out there, you know, because they were always there, so they would always see us fight. But they were like, I had my back turned to my camp, and they said, hey, do you have a fire going? And I was like, what? They're like, your camp's on fire. I'm like, I turned around, and the whole thing was catching on fire, and I had a big propane tank in there, and that's what it caught. So because there was a tree in our tent, and there was a propane tank inside the tank on the side of the tent, and that the fire hit it, and it was going psh, like squirting out. And I was like, what do we do? And he had took everything, all the water, he took it. So they're just like, just let it burn out. And then all these people came out of the desert that I had not even known they were there. Because there's people that were there, like, that you could see. But I guess there was a bunch of people out there that you couldn't see, like from, you know, maybe living underground or something. I don't know. They come out, all these people, you know, and the fire department came, put out the fire, and the cops they talked to me like, was it an accidental fire? I was like, yeah. So they left. And as soon as those people left, this dude comes back, my ex. He comes back, and I'm like, he circles around, and he saw it was just all black, and he circles around, and he takes off. And I start chasing after him. I'm running, and he's slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. And I chased him for like a mile. I was running after this guy, and he kept on slowing down, speeding up. And then I was like, whatever. He left, and then I walked back to those people, and I used their phone, and I called my mom because I didn't know his number because it was my plan or whatever, but he had the phone, but we changed the number. So I called my mom. I said, hey, my camp caught on fire. I need his number. And she gave me the number, and I called him, and he's like, hey. I said, what the heck? Why'd you leave? He goes, I was coming back. I said, the whole thing caught on fire. He goes, why'd you burn it? That's what he said. He goes, why'd you catch it on fire? I'm like, I didn't catch it on fire. Like, are you serious? And he goes, look, I'm getting back on I'm getting off the freeway right there to come get you. And so I walk, because this is one avenue, and then the desert, and then this is another avenue. So I walked all the way to this other avenue in the dark with no flashlight, because I thought he was going to be there like an idiot. And then when I got there, I was tired because I hadn't done drugs that day or the day before that. I was already coming down, you know. And he wasn't there. So I had to muscle up the courage to walk all the way back. And those people were like, we'll get you a sleeping bag. We'll help you out. And I was like, no, he's gonna be over there and pick me up. And so then I walked back. I'm like, I'm going to need that sleeping bag. And they're like, there's a guy over there. He's going to wave his flashlight at you. He has a sleeping bag for you. Just go meet him. And I was like, at this point, what did I have to lose? It didn't really matter who it was, you know. I had to do it, you know. So I walked to that guy, and he let me stay in his camp for the night, or for a few nights, actually. But he started talking to me about God, about Jesus. And it was like the event after the event, because it was like, obviously God was trying to get a hold of me at that point. You know, he was, but I think at that point he boxed me in. He's like, nope, you're not going nowhere. You're done, you know, like, come to me. And so every event that happened after that fire was like, it was all God, you know. So that guy started talking to me about God. And then there was a lady that had seen me walking. I forgot this part. Before I went back to the thing, I took off walking to go get water from the McDonald's nearby. And when I was walking back, there was this lady that had seen me, and she was like, hey, I have something for you. And I was like, she messing with me, you know? Because you didn't believe anybody at this point. I was like, she's messing with me. She goes, no, here. And she had some food and some juice. And she goes, what do you need? I'll bring it to you. Where are you staying? I'll bring it to you. And I told her, like, I need some, like, pads or whatever, you know. She's closed. I didn't have anything. And so I guess she came back maybe around the time the fire happened. But she never came all the way through. So she never came. I never seen her. I stayed the night with that guy in his tent. And then the next day, she came out. And I recognized her car. And I was like, that's the lady. And she gave me all that stuff like she said. And then I'm thinking it was that next day too that there's this place out here, I can't say the name, but they give help to people who are homeless, like food, resources, if you need a phone, or they especially help with people who are domestic violence relationships. They'll really help you. So they had came out that day, the next day, and they saw I was all swollen. I hadn't seen myself until maybe the day after that, so I had no idea what I looked like. I didn't know I was all blue or anything. So they came and the nurses looked at me and they gave me a phone, a Walmart phone, which is good. And I got that lady's number. So I had a phone. I was able to text people. But that guy ended up being like, he wouldn't let me talk on the phone. Like if I wanted to take off walking in the desert, he would follow me. And so I was like, I gotta get out of here, you know? And I wasn't like, I didn't call anybody, like any of my friends, and like say what my situation was. Because I knew I needed to do this for myself, but I didn't want to be a burden to anybody because I felt like a burden at that time. Like, even to that guy that helped me, I felt like a burden, you know, like really bad. And even though it was just, we were camping in the desert, I felt like a burden because, you know, my boyfriend would make me feel like nobody cared about me. My family didn't care about me. Like, he was the only one that cared about me. And I started to believe it, you know. That's why I stopped contacting my family because he brainwashed me to the point where it was like, I'm the only one that cares about you. Nobody ever is going to care about you. And I believed it. I really did. And that's why even I had showed up at Barbara's house one time, twacked out, dude. And I didn't have a phone or nothing, but I know I needed help, but I didn't know how to ask for it. I showed up at Barbara's house one day, and I just knocked on her door, and she didn't answer. And so I had already felt rejected in my mind, so then I just sat in the car. I just sat there, and then finally she came out, and she goes, Serena, what's going on? And I was like, and I just felt like, oh, she doesn't care about me, you know? It was like, and it wasn't even that. It was just, I was going through my own thing, and nobody knew how to help me, you know? Because I wasn't asking for the help. I wasn't saying, like, hey, this is what's going on. Nobody knew, because I wouldn't speak about it. It was all in my own mind, you know? No, so that lady, I had got her number or whatever, and I think she was confused. I think because I didn't tell her my situation like with my boyfriend or anything. So I think when she came out and see me with that other guy, I think she assumed like that's who I was with or whatever. Because she brought me chairs and all types of stuff, like as if I was gonna live there, you know. So I didn't get to tell her the whole situation of what it was. So it was crazy because I don't know the days, but I know that I think it was on a Saturday when I seen her. Or no, it's Friday. Because then Saturday I called her and I said, hey, I need to get out of here. I was like, I need to get out of here. Because he was following me around and stuff. And she goes, I'll be there to pick you up. But she didn't come till Sunday. So Sunday we got up. And I think it was the same day, Friday too, is the first time I seen myself in the mirror. Because we went walking and we went to this. He was buying me like a backpack and stuff, you know, from this, I don't know, like a yard sale or something. I don't know. And I went in the bathroom, and that's when I first seen my reflection, and I was like, oh my God, I look like this? I was like, you didn't tell me I looked like this. I looked horrible. I looked like an avatar, straight up. The blue, everything. I looked like an avatar. I was so blue and swollen, and I was so like, oh my God, like, wow. That was probably the worst he had ever hit me, because he would punch me all the time and give me black eyes, but I think that was the worst, you know? And I think it was because I was so thin and skinny, you know, that I just couldn't take it. But I would say, like, that was the last time that we fought that I couldn't fight back. Like, I didn't have the strength. Because usually, I don't care. I'll fight him back, you know. But I didn't have the strength that last time, you know. So I think that's why I was so swollen and purple. And then the Sunday, we walked to church. I come out of the tent, and this is all desert right here. That leads to, like, a main road over here. Pretty far. And when we go out the tent, my boyfriend is over here stuck in the desert, like stuck. And I was like, Oh my God. So we walked by. I was like, no, I can't, And it was a fight when I walked by. I stopped and I started crying and I was like, I want to go back. And he goes, no, come on, you can do this. Like, let's just go. And I was like, I want to go back. But I didn't. And so we walked to church, some little Calvary church or something. I don't even know what it was. And then that lady called me after church because I guess he had plans or something with me. I don't even know. So I called that lady, or she called me and she goes, hey, where are you? And I said, hey, I'm over here. And she goes, I'm coming to get you. Get your stuff. We're going. And so she came and I just told that guy, like, I'm leaving. And that's all I told the guy because he was being too nosy, trying to be like possessive over me. So I grabbed my stuff and I got in the car with her and I left and I never went back. Well, I did go back to that desert later, but that was for other reasons. But I never lived there again. And she let me stay with her for, I want to say 4 days. 4 days she let me stay there. And she was so like, she treated me like I was normal, and let me get sober, her and her daughters.
Sorry, can you just clarify, like, this is now the house that you were talking about, or this is...
No, this is some lady that was helping me.
Oh, okay.
And bringing her things that she needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a lady that got me out of the desert. And
So
she was...
from the man that who helped her originally, right?
Yeah. So the guy that was helping me but was trying to...
Be possessive.
Yeah. So then that lady helped me, and then after 4 days, she told me, like, on the 4th day, like, hey, you're going to go to rehabilitation. Like, she wouldn't tell me no details, like, where or who. She wouldn't tell me. And I remember she had took me to her church, and it was a Spanish church, so I didn't know what was going on. But I remember she told her pastor, it's a small little church, her pastor prayed for me. He said, so I heard that you need a home. And I said, yeah. And so he prayed for me. And then I think maybe she asked her pastor, because I know he must have found the resource and gave it to her to, to have them pick me up. And so she told me, pack your stuff, like, you can do this. You got all the potential in the world. Like, you can do this. But just remember to put God first, regardless of what happens to you. Always put God before everything and give him the glory. And she goes, somebody's going to pick you up today, and they're going to take you, and you're going to get rehabilitation. And I was like, where? Like, not like I wasn't going to go, but I just wanted to know where, like, who. And she wouldn't tell me. And so then my director from the home I was in, she came and she told me about the program. It's a Christian-based program. It was a year commitment. And I was like, she goes, I'm going to let you think about it and call me and maybe you can come tomorrow. And I was like, can I go right now? Like, I had my backpack ready. I only had a few things. She goes, yeah. And so she let me go. And then I was in the women's home, a women's recovery home through my church. I'm not going to say any names for certain reasons, but through my church. And it's a, very big church known in the world, but it's a women's recovery home. They have men's homes and women's homes. And I stayed there 15 months. So I did my year, I graduated. And then I stayed an extra 3 months to help and be staff. But I know God really worked through me in that program. Because obviously I wanted to change, but I wanted to do it myself. I didn't want to depend on nobody. I needed to change, and I wanted to change, and I wanted that. I didn't tell nobody I was going there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until after my 30 days, I called my grandma and I told her, like, hey, I'm in this program, and so she was happy, but I didn't tell nobody, so it was more helpful to be in the program, and because I would only get one phone call a week for 10 minutes, so I would just write my mom or whatever, but it was just easier to do it, and it's crazy because I went through the program and it was like, how did I do that? Like, how did I go through that whole program? That much time flew by. Not only did I felt like I wasted like 8 months of my life, and then another 15 months went by, so it was like, 2 years? I felt like I missed out on 2 years of everybody's lives. So everybody's lives moved forward, and Barbara had a baby, and my other cousin had a baby, and it was like, wow, like so much changed because I didn't have it was just, I was in the home, so I had no phone, no nothing. It was like, I was there in the home, it was just me and God, so it wasn't like, I didn't have no access to the news or anything, so I didn't know what was going on. So it was a good thing, that I went through that, and I know that it's possible for anybody. It's not just But you have to want it. You can't just, somebody can't just throw you in the program and you come out changed. Like, you have to want it. If you want it and you're ready, then it's possible, and God could change you. God could change your heart. He could renew your soul and your mind. Like, I wouldn't have ever thought that I would ever get my mind back or get my sanity back, or like, I have such a clear mind now, and I can think straight. I can remember stuff.
I was about to ask you that too.
Huh.
Like, you know, if you ever thought that you were going to get out of that situation and be back to, like, your normal self.
I mean, when I was in the home, like, after a while, I think it would took about, because I asked my director, like, how long did it take for me to start looking normal? And about 4 months. After about 4 months is when I started to feel, like, okay in my mind. I mean, I still, to this day, my main problem was flashbacks, triggers, reminded of the past with him. So to this day, I still suffer from that. Like there, for example, if I see the same car, I get triggered for a second, you know, but then I have to come back, you know, like now I don't dwell on it. So like I'll get a trigger or something will remind me. It could just be anything that triggers it. And then I'll go back in my mind and I'm like, and I'll get stuck. Like sometimes you'll see me, I'll be sitting here and then I'm like, it's because I'm like thinking about the past or stuff that happened, bad events. I don't think I ever think of good events anymore. I just think of bad stuff that happened between us. And every day, sometimes I think of new stuff, like stuff that I forgot that happened. Or sometimes, like I remember the other day, I was with my mom and one of our cousins and he was talking about something. And I got like sick to my stomach because it just reminded me of the past, you know. And I was like, oh God, you know, like, and so I do see where God reveals to me all the time, like, where I need to grow and what I need to work on, you know, like, I know I have, not necessarily a men problem, but I do have issues with not all men, certain men, or if certain men try to be controlling to me, it triggers me, like, and I'm kind of like, whoa, you know? Mm-hmm. So I know where I need to grow and I know what I need to work on and that I have to wait before I be with anybody ever again, because I don't want to go through that ever again. Ever.
Wow. Well, that was deep.
Yeah. But I just know that no matter what addiction you have, whether it's alcohol or drugs or men or pornography, any addiction, like, God can help you with it. God can deliver you from it. Like, I know God delivered me from drugs. Like, he delivered me from a lot, but I don't even get the craving. Like, somebody could smoke weed next to me. It doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for me. And it's not, I've even been around people who do drugs or I'm good. And I think it's because you have to hit your very rock bottom. And I feel like a lot of people haven't. I feel like a lot of people that are out there lost, like, they haven't hit their rock bottom yet. I know I hit my bottom, like, where I had no other option but to cry out to God, you know? But I feel like when you're ready and when you want to change, you'll do it. Not because your family wants you to change, but because you want to change you want to change your life and you want to do something, like, you'll do it. And I can't stand it when I hear people like, oh, she'll never change or he'll never change. Mm-hmm. Yes, he will, but stop speaking death over him or her, you know? It's like, when you're ready to change, then you're going to change. But until then, you know, don't think that you're stuck in that lifestyle, like, because when you're ready, you're going to be ready. But God can help you.
And what do you want to tell, like, the viewers or people that are struggling, especially, because you already talked about addiction, domestic violence?
What about it?
What would you want to tell your viewers and people that are struggling with it now? How would you tell them to deal with that or get out of that?
Well, I know for being trapped in a domestic violence relationship, it's like, I can't even explain that, because it's like, when you're in love with somebody, you're in love with them, regardless of if they're controlling or not, or possessive or whatever it is. It's something that you just have to go through, you know? Like, if you're in love with somebody like that, nobody's going to tell you anything until you know it, until you accept the fact that, oh, wow, he is controlling, you know? Because, like, for me, anybody could have told me anything, and I've been like, yeah, right, I love him, you know? And that's why I didn't come around nobody. Like, nobody met him in my family, except for my mom and my brothers. Well, one of my brothers, and Grandma and Grandpa met him once. that was one time. That was it. Nobody else met him because I know that they would have not liked it. So but I don't know. It's hard to say because when you're in a domestic violence relationship, there is you may think like there's no out or I'm gonna be stuck here, and that's not true. But you have to know your worth. You have to know that you're worthy of it. You got to know who you are. You got to know your identity, and you can't let a man take that away from you. You can't let him take away your worth or question your sanity or gaslight you. You got to know who you are, and that's why it's important to know who you are as a woman or a man before you get with somebody, because you want them to add to you, not take away. So it's important to know who you are and what you want in life, and if that person doesn't add up with that, then see you later. Well, if you guys have any questions or comments, like leave them below. If you want to tell your testimony, share that on our page, with our Instagram, our YouTube. If you have anything to say, comment below, subscribe, share this with a friend. Share this with somebody that is hurting, and maybe it could give them that inspiration that they need.